Hello and welcome to a warm Wednesday afternoon here on Colombo and Company on 101.994.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Ashlyn, and we have got a jam-packed show for you today. The latest on the situation with Iran, including Donald Trump's proposed ceasefire. We'll get to the details on that. We've got the latest on the debate surrounding government funding, DHS funding. A follow-up from yesterday's story where the Republicans seemed prepared to give in on certain issues, and they... Again, we'll get into the details a little bit later on, especially when we get Danny Define on the line a little bit later on this hour. But after giving in on some of those demands, the Democrats still want more, which is exactly the thing that we have been worried about and warning about for weeks, that if the Republicans give a little, that's never going to be enough. And it seems to be playing out exactly that way right now with the DHS funding. And like I said, we'll get you caught up on all of those details as we go through the afternoon. We also have the latest happening here in the state of Missouri as the 2026 legislative session is back underway. And the spring break is over. So it's the second half basically now of the legislative session, which is when the clock begins to tick very loudly on getting issues done and getting some work done, things across the finish line, and we'll get a full update on where we're at with that process. What are the issues right now that are being debated and discussed? What can we hope to see happening soon in Jeff City coming out of the legislative session? We'll find that out as we go through the afternoon as well. It's Wednesday, which means in the 3 o'clock hour, just a little less than an hour from now, we will open Klose's cabinet. That's always a good time. Talk to our buddy Mark Klose with KC95 and Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet. As I mentioned, Danny Define, News Talk STL contributor Danny Define, will be with us in about a half an hour. And in less than 10 minutes, as I mentioned, those local issues, our very own Missouri political insider, the great Rodney Boyd, will be with us. Can't wait to talk to Rodney. Always a great peek behind the curtains of what's happening with local news and politics whenever we get Rodney on the line. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's dive right in here. As I mentioned, we got news coming out of Iran, the latest here. So Donald Trump had proposed a 15-point ceasefire this morning, and it came along with a warning that if this wasn't accepted by Iranian leadership, that the bombings would continue, the beatings will continue, and apparently that's unfortunately where we're at, as the latest news is Iran has rejected President Donald Trump's 15-point ceasefire proposal today, according to Iranian officials and Iranian state media. Trey Yanks from Fox News reported, quote, Iran has rejected the Trump administration's ceasefire proposal, according to Iranian state media and the Iranian consulate. The U.S. had presented the ceasefire proposal to Iranian leaders via Pakistani officials, who have offered to serve as intermediaries for negotiations. Now, we still don't know exactly who are the people that we're negotiating with. Like, I know they're Iranian, but, like, specifically who? Is it Mojtaba Khomeini? Is it the son of the Ayatollah? Or is that guy critically wounded? Is he even alive? Is there somebody else? Last week, it seemed like literally every day there was another story about the guy who had just taken over for the last guy got bombed by mostly it was the IDF that was targeting those leadership officials last week. So it was a lot of the Israeli news. But it seemed like, after the original launch of Operation Epic Fury, which took out nearly 50 members of the leadership team under the Ayatollah. There's been dozens more taken out. So who are we even negotiating with? I'm not sure. But unfortunately, whoever that is, weren't ready to admit defeat, accept any of the details within this ceasefire. And then, so like I said, just before putting that out, but just before the announcement of the ceasefire being rejected, it was announced by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in a statement this morning that the president will continue the campaign against Iran if its leaders refuse to reach a peace agreement. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made the statement during her opening remarks at today's press conference, telling reporters that violence will only continue if Iran refuses to come to the table. Quote, President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. I feel like we don't need to even say that anymore because that's obviously the truth. Back to Caroline, quote, Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their leadership, their navy, their air force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand that they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal. And again, apparently that is exactly the case, at least as it stands. Now, according to the statement from Caroline Leavitt at the White House today, the ceasefire proposal came with a 5-day discussion period. So when we put it out, when the president sent this ceasefire proposal to the leaders of Iran, he said, here it is, and you got 5 days to decide. So, and he said that the bombings wouldn't resume until that 5-day period was over. But since Iran so quickly came back and said, all right, we're not doing this, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if that 5-day negotiation period still stands, because my guess is that it may not. If there is signals from Iran that there is no intention to come back to the table and negotiate this. So obviously we'll have to keep a very close eye on this and keep you up to speed as we get more details, as we go through every step of this. Today, the White House also offered new details on the long-term future of the Strait of Hormuz, saying the U.S. will play a secondary role in guarding and policing the strait, which is, I think, great news for people who don't want the United States to be caught up in a long-term proposal of being, on the scene in the Middle East, whether it be nation building or rebuilding in Iran, or having to be the ones that are solely in charge of the Strait of Hormuz. So this is definitely a step in the right direction. And obviously, who that person is or who those people are that will be policing the strait and controlling it and managing it, that's going to be the biggest the biggest, most important, most impactful decision to be made. So if it's not going to be the United States, it needs to be somebody who, a good actor that can be trusted on the world stage to do this. But good. It doesn't need to be the United States, at least from a primary standpoint. And that's what the White House said today, a secondary role. The White House said that the long-term protection of the strait will be primarily carried out by, quote, the nations who actually use it, unquote. This from a White House official, quote, as the president stated, the Strait of Hormuz will ultimately be opened up, but longer term, the strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by the nations who actually use it. If asked, the U.S. will help these countries in their Hormuz efforts. But once Iran's threat is eradicated, it will be an easy military operation for them, and U.S. support shouldn't be necessary, unquote. A little bit later on in the statement, this White House official said, quote, these countries all support preventing the Iranian terrorist regime from having nuclear weapons and thousands of ballistic missiles that can threaten their homelands and hold their energy sources hostage. So, again, seems to me to be a very positive step in the right direction. That, and we hope to see this and I don't mean to harp on this, but it just seems it's just not how things have played out in the past. So you keep repeating these things because you want to make sure that they're true. And I know that the president, so people looking at this, in an isolated, as an isolated situation with this entire operation in Iran, yeah, the president has said from day one that this is not a long-term promise to the Middle East or to the people of Iran that the United States is going to set up their government. We're going to set up our own infrastructure, and we're going to be the ones that are there and running the show and policing things and being, having troops in that part of the world long term. Yeah, he's said that the whole time. So I know if you're looking at it that way, you're like, yeah, he's just doing what he said he's going to do. Why do you keep talking about it, or why do you seem so worried about it? Because I'm worried about it because that's just not how it's ever gone in the past. It's just never been that way for the United States in the past. We've always been kept on the hook. And this announcement about the Strait of Hormuz is another example of this president and this administration showing that it's not going to be that way this time. It's just a little hard for me to really believe that long term. And it's not me downing the president. It's just, you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, then that means you're insane. So expecting a different result feels a little insane this first time around. But hopefully, it plays out exactly as the president and this administration has said it will. And we will obviously keep a close eye on that and keep you up to speed on everything that is happening in that part of the world. All right, we're going to get back into some of the national stories of the day, including the latest on the government shutdown when we get News Talk STL contributor Danny Define on the line with us. Danny will be with us in about 20 minutes or so. But first, we're going to switch gears and focus on some local issues. The second half of the Missouri legislative session in 2026 is now underway. What is the latest? What is happening there? What is the focus of Missouri lawmakers as they kick off the second half of the session? We're going to find out when we talk to our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd, next.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. Louis's place to talk.
Freedom of speech is one of the anchors of our society.
News Talk STL.
Spring has sprung at Daniel's Farming Greenhouses on Joggerman and St. Peters. Discover our breathtaking 55,000 square feet of greenhouses featuring 8,000 hanging baskets, hundreds of perennials, and 100,000 pods of colorful annuals. From vegetable plants to premium grass seed, mulch to herbs, our knowledgeable staff is ready to answer all your questions. Start spring off right with pansies, potted tulips, and everything your garden craves. Daniel's Farming Greenhouses. Visit us today on Joggerman or online at danielsfarmandgreenhouses.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Patrick Toohey, he is senior fellow with the Show Me Institute.
You can say it's schools, you can say it's crime or the perception of crime. Those are legit, but, St. Louis needs fewer reasons for people to leave, whatever they are. Mm-hmm. And even if the 1% tax isn't the top reason they leave, it's not keeping people in. And St. Louis needs to be competitive with the municipalities around them.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
The Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University and News Talk STL invite you to an exclusive discussion on Missouri's tax future. Manish Bhatt, Vice President of State Tax Policy for the Tax Foundation, will explore our state's tax competitiveness and the latest efforts to eliminate individual income tax and property tax. Wednesday, March 25th at Lindenwood University, part of the H.F. Langenberg Speaker Series. The event is free, but you must RSVP at hammondinstitute.org. That's hammondinstitute.org.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The Supreme Court is hearing arguments about grace periods for mail-in ballots. Zach Smith will tell us if Election Day will go back to being only one day.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Look around your world, pretty baby. Is it everything you hoped it'd be? The wrong guy, the wrong situation, the right time to roll to me. Roll to me. And look
Welcome back to
into
Colombo
your
Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Wednesday afternoon means it's time to check in with our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd. And Rodney, here we go. Spring break is over. Second half of the legislative session is underway. And this is when those ticks of the clock become very loud in the ears of lawmakers. And you can feel the deadline creeping closer each and every day. So it's go time, right? It's going to be this is a busy time in Jeff City. So
Very
appreciate
busy
your time.
Someone said to me yesterday, because we got back up here on Monday, and they said to me yesterday, this is an interesting feeling. It feels like there's so much going on in terms of the big ideas that are being debated and moving and whatnot. And it just feels like there's so many significant, heavy issues, tax reform, whether it's income tax to potential sale, property tax issues, other issues. But at the same time, if you just look at sort of where bills are, it doesn't, the movement of bills, the movement of bills doesn't correspond to the feeling of the gravity in the building, right? So it's just really a weird deal. But there is the ticking of the clock because session ends second Friday in May, and that's pursuant to the rules that when they have to shut down. And there's been a lot of big issues, many of them that have passed out of the House of Representatives and have landed in the Senate, which means that, and we talk a lot about the difference in the two chambers on your show for years. The House is a sort of a top-down body. Leadership can drive policy and law and initiatives through the chamber and get them passed, where they then have to go to the Senate, which in Missouri is probably one of the most interesting and deliberative senates in the country as far as state assemblies go, because we have this very historical, antiquated, but yet the current system is one where even the Democrat senators where there's 10 out of 34 still have an incredible ability to slow things down, to use debate, and really sort of make this process not grind to a halt, but slow.
Mm-hmm. Is this a different feeling than, I mean, that type of delay and and these type of issues that slow the process down? That seems very normal. That feels like something that we've been through, year after year in Jeff City. Is there a difference this year than in years past? Because I know that this session, and it kind of started with the last session, actually, not just this session, has had, since the election of Governor Kehoe, there's been a little bit of a different mood, a little bit different vibe, different feeling there in Jeff City. Is this a return to sort of the old feelings, or is it different? Go ahead.
I wouldn't say that, but you're right. Under this current governor and current legislative majority makeup, some decisions were made last year to really alter that process, that slow, deliberative process on a couple of big issues. Some of that is involved in what's called cutting off debate, moving to PQ. And the way that works is the majority party ultimately has the levers of power, and they can, should they choose, they can cut off debate. It's a very politically vile, hostile move, and get right to the vote. And when they do that, because of the numbers they have, they're able to push anything through, right? That sort of disrupts this whole construct of our Missouri Senate, the historical process. If you go back, if you looked at the last 60 years and not just the last 20, the Democrats controlled the both chambers up here with similar majority numbers as Republicans have today. and for all of the 80s, 90s, or even early 2000s, they wielded the power that the Republicans have. So people are respectful of the Senate process because the pendulum, even though it may take a couple of decades, can swing. But when it came to the special sessions in the last part of last session, the majority in the Senate said, hey, we've given enough time for Democrats. The slowing down did occur, but the grinding to a halt was not an option on big issues, and so they cut off debate. Some of that is colored this session, and I think there's a juxtaposition on Senate leadership over here to say, hey, we don't want to obliterate the procedures and the policies in the Senate. And we'll see what happens as the weeks come. I think there's a lot more of the traditional conversations behind the scenes to see if people can reach a compromise and a consensus. I don't see yet that we've gotten to the point where we were just in the past two special sessions in the end of last session where there's going to be, a decision to cut off debate. I think there's a hope amongst the leadership that maybe we can get to a consensus. And we'll see. I mean, the big issue, a couple of the big issues, consensus is not in front of us, so it must be developed, and that's around the idea of putting the question to the voters, one of them, on do we make the shift from what we've been as an income tax state to an alternative model, such as a sales tax state, with some different measures and triggers in there. What's happening in the building is that legislation is a resolution. It's House and Senate resolutions that will put the question before the voters in Missouri in November. But if you don't want the voters to get there, then what do? You stop it from ever getting out of the Senate. They've got to work through those issues. There's some big issues around, quote unquote, the gaming conversation around. You've talked about this for a while. These video lottery terminals, and what do you do with them? And there's a huge tension between, how you license and regulate, and then what do you do about all these other thousands of machines that are up and operational? Do you ban them? Do you whatever? So these are the conversations.
And those machines are still operating today, right, Rodney? Those
machines are operating today, right now. There's been a court ruling on one type of machine. Didn't speak to the plurality of machines. And there's been some conversations from the state attorney general that she doesn't believe these machines are legal. But until the legislature creates a bright line, then we've got this gray area. And the gray area and the acronym that people talk about, they call these gray machines, is not because they're silver or gray, but it's because they are not under the current statutory or regulatory framework of either the Gaming Commission or the Missouri Lottery. They're just out there, and they are operational. And I think that will give way to some kind of legislative compromise, but we'll have to get there. There's still issues on property tax reform, which you and I have talked about, ways to sort of protect and minimize the impact. And there's conversations still yet around education reform and a few other big ticket items. But these things have passed the House, and so there's a sense that once these things pass the House of Representatives, there is now going to have to be a real sort of meeting of the minds to some degree in the Missouri Senate. And that's where this thing slows down, right? But that's where also the ticking clock creates a sense of ultimately, what will the majority party say must get to the governor's desk through the Senate? And then we'll see, and we'll be talking about this as the session goes on. We'll see if we go back to the approach to some degree of the last two special sessions in the prior session where, hey, there's enough, people feel there's been enough Democratic debate to do something like a PQ, but we don't know yet. We're not there today. And I think where we are today is you see efforts on the part of the leadership in the Senate to try not to have to replay what happened in the past two specials in prior session and get to some point of consensus. If not, then there's going to have to be some tough decisions made about what you do on these big policy issues, many of which have already passed the House of Representatives and are now really – so if there was a scale, I think the heavy weight of what's left to be done is sort of sitting in the Missouri Senate.
So, and this is why these conversations specifically are so important, to get this type of insight and dig into some of these issues with our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd, who's on the line with us now. Rodney, I want to get back. I want to go back to the income tax issue for in a moment.
Yes.
But first, just to wrap up the PQ previous question, aspect of this and the cutting off of debate. that is something that in the past was looked at, as the nuclear option. That old that old
Yes,
saying
sir.
that we hear all the time in local politics and in national politics, the nuclear option. And it was, this big deal. And never, you only do this when you absolutely have to. It's like a cage match in wrestling. Only when it's gotten to this level do you ever have to actually lock yourself in the cage and decide to, and decide your problems from there. Is it still looked at as that?
It is.
Is that heavy of a decision, or now that it's been used in the recent past, is it more likely to be used in the future and not have that heavy burden cast upon it?
So you do. It's somewhere in the middle, and here's why. I think it's still considered the least appealing option, even for leadership, to cut off debate because of the traditions that sort of permeate and hover in the Missouri Senate of being a place that you can slow things down and grind toward a compromise, right? And remember, I mean, this is interesting. I've been up here for a while. The first time that the previous question had been used in the Missouri Senate in my time up here, it was actually used intra-party. A Democrat literally called the motion on a fellow Democrat.
That's interesting.
Right? Yeah. No, I was Senator Harold Caskey used the previous question to cut off Senator Harry Kennedy. Caskey was from Cass County. Kennedy was from the city. And that's when it was done. So, and even then it was considered a nuclear volatile option, right?
Yeah.
Much more often is it used between, obviously, Republican or majority party versus minority party. So here's the deal. I think that it caused so much consternation and so much tension in the building till the majority party said, look, we felt we had no choice in the times we used it in the special sessions and the end of last session. But we think now that we've used it, there is a sense that it is a tool that could be pulled off the shelf. But let's do everything within our negotiating power to get to a consensus without reaching for that option on the shelf. So that's, I think, where we are today. And there are conversations being had. You see bipartisan meetings, people talking and trying to find a way forward. I surmise if they don't get there, if they don't get to a point of agreement on some of the big issues, whether it be the income tax issue, which the governor has said, this is my, big priority for this session, or some of the other issues on personal. I don't doubt that you could see leadership reach on the shelf and pull that least of all options off to get some of these big things done.
So last thing for now, and I'm sure we're going to, in the coming weeks, we're going to break down a lot of these issues and get into them, sort of one by one, because there are so many other issues. I've got AI questions. I've got education questions. I've got, tax questions, budget questions. But to wrap this up for today, Rodney, going back to the income tax, which I think is that's become sort of the number one, outside the budget, that seems to be the number one item that's being discussed in Jeff City and seems to be the focus of the lawmakers and, quite frankly, the voters as well. And this idea of what comes next and what are we discussing, like what specifically are we discussing this year and what comes afterwards? Because I think that what I've heard from you and from conversations with Missouri lawmakers and others, involved in state politics, is that the basic plan is to, what you alluded to earlier, no longer be an income tax state, but be a sales tax state. But correct me if I'm wrong, we have to do these things one step at a time. So this first round is going to be asking the voters to eliminate the income tax, but with the idea that we at least think that we know from talking to lawmakers that the idea is to increase sales tax or change the sales tax structure or consumption tax structure as a way to sort of replace that. But that piece of it, the sales tax piece of it, isn't part of the legislation that we're discussing this session. Is that correct?
That's fair. What is before the body this session and what would ultimately be before the voters is they want voter approval on making this shift from purely income tax state model to a sales tax state model. Why you're not debating exactly what the meat of the sales tax or the details would be is because people want time. This is what they're saying. They want time to really look at the economic market now. So how we as Missourians consume and sell and buy things is radically different than it was even 5 years ago. And people are anticipating that with the advent of new ways that we work and sell and move commerce, that you have to have a very thorough analysis of what and how you would tax sales and other service and other things going forward. So what the legislature and the governor, effectively the majority, is saying is we want to first get a sense that the voters will give us the authority through amending the Constitution to allow us to begin to really dig into what an alternative model would look like in what I'm going to make up a hold harmless way would be, meaning you would have to have revenue offsets or triggers that would allow the income tax to be decreased and this new form of taxes to become normalized. But the legislature will not undertake, and the governor will not instruct or advise or them to undertake that significant work if the voters don't give them the green light through one of these through the resolution questions to go that far. So the voters decide in November, nope, the devil we know is better than the one we're about to meet, then we'll never get there. If they do, however, say, okay, we are open to looking at a new way that we can fund our state government, come back in 2027, folks, have us, and really put some thought into this, because that would have to happen before the change occurs. I don't want anybody to think that there's a vote in November, you wake up in December or January, and then no more income tax, now sales tax. Not that simple. That vote in November triggers a process of extreme, meticulous due diligence to get the right mechanisms in place to allow the conversion from income to sales. And there will be volumes of input into that process before a change occurs. But nothing will be triggered that will start that process unless the voters give the effectively the government the green light to begin those queries.
There's a lot. That's a lot to unpack just for that one issue, let alone all of the other issues that we're trying to keep an eye on and keep up with that are being debated there in Jeff City this session and will come to a head here in the next couple months, over the next several weeks. And we would not be able to keep up with all of it if it wasn't for the great help of people like Rodney Boyd, our Missouri political insider. Rodney, great stuff as always. Really appreciate your time, my friend, and I look forward to a lot more great conversations in the coming weeks. Have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Okay,
great stuff. That is Rodney Boyd here on Colombo and Company. And as I mentioned, time to switch things back out to some of the national stories of the day, including the latest on the debates surrounding the SAVE Act and the government shutdown. I've got a little sound I'm going to play for you, just how clueless many on the left are about what we're even talking about when it comes to the SAVE Act. How they don't even understand what they're arguing, and I'm going to prove it, at least to a certain extent, here in just a moment when we talk to our News Talk STL contributor, Danny Define. He'll join us next on Colombo and Company.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. News, analysis, opinion.
Don't always agree, but in love listening to your radio station.
This is tyrannical stuff they're doing.
Elections have consequences.
This is 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey, folks, it's Jamie Allman here for the Walner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway. I love this team so much, and Rodney and Jen love the team so much, I became a member. So now I'm an agent with the Walner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway, and I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that we're going to get you into a home really super easily and with the lowest cost you're ever going to find, and make sure we find you that dream home. We're also going to list your home and get the top dollar for your home. I'm telling you, Rodney and Jen love this business. You can tell it is infectious, and I'm so happy to be a real estate agent there with them. 314-810-SOLD, 314-810-SOLD. Whether you are buying your home or selling your home, I'm telling you what, the costs are going to be absolutely totally minimal, but the professionalism and getting the job done for you is going to be 100%. The Walner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway, 314-810-SOLD, 314-810-SOLD.
Ever feel like just a number in a waiting room? Hi, I'm Shannon Tribune, Director of Operations with Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Navigating the medical system can be a maze of stress. I'm your personal guide at Body of Health. I handle the messy parts of medical care, the logistics and complex coordination, both in and outside our walls, so you and Dr. Tobler, that's my dad, can focus on what matters most, your health. At Body of Health, you're not just a patient, you're part of the family, because that's healthcare the way it ought to be. To learn more, schedule a discovery call at bodyofhealth.com.
This hour of Colombo Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Ashlyn, and on the line with us now is News Talk STL contributor Danny Define. Danny, great to talk with you, buddy. It's been a couple weeks, which means there's a lot to catch up on. How are you?
So much to catch up on, Tony, but it's always a pleasure being on here Wednesday afternoon with you and the News Talk STL audience.
Yeah, love the time that you're able to give us today. I talked in the first segment about Iran, but I did want to touch on Iran before we moved on to some other issues, because I know this is something that you're obviously keeping a very close eye on, and you were one of the people that I thought of when I read this story earlier. And I don't want to dig back all the way back into the details because, like I said, I covered it a little bit earlier in the show today. But the United States, the White House offered new details on the long-term future of the Strait of Hormuz today, saying that the U.S. will play a secondary role in guarding and policing the strait. And I mentioned earlier that, this is great. And I know that this is what the president keeps saying, this administration keeps saying, that, look, we are not going to be in Iran long-term. We're not going to be in the Strait of Hormuz long term. We're not going to be dedicating a bunch of resources. We're not going to be involved in nation building and all of these things. And I know that I keep harping on these issues, but again, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's only because every history lesson that I've been taught says that that's not the case, that the United States will be on the hook for all of these things. So I hope that this is another great story that they go on in the statement to say that there's no need for the United States to be there, policing the strait after the Iranian regime has been eradicated, and that the countries that are in that part of the world and that actually use the strait on a daily basis, they're the ones that need to be in charge of its management and its policing and all of that, which I 100% agree with. But Danny, it's hard for me to, they say that, you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity. Unfortunately, we've had these issues happen in the Middle East several times, and it's always the same. It's always been the same result, that we're on the hook long term. And for me to believe otherwise, I feel like maybe that's me being insane, because that's the definition of insanity. So I don't know. This is great news. Do you believe it? Do you believe that there will be a different outcome when this is all said and done than what we have seen, at least in the recent history, when it comes to our dealings in the Middle East?
Yeah, well, Tony, you are very right to believe that. As history has proven time and time again, these quick and swift military operations in the Middle East end up turning into forever wars. And I don't know if this is going to be like the war on terror that lasted nearly 20 years, but this is already getting stretched out now. This has been going on now for several weeks, and it doesn't really seem to be getting that much better. It doesn't seem like we went in there with an actual game plan or how we would de-escalate and what the objectives were. There's so many conflicting stories and goals and objectives, whether it's coming from Donald Trump himself or Pete Hegseth, or other members in his cabinet. It just seems like we went into this situation several weeks ago without really a clear objective. And as we're seeing, this is now starting to turn into a war of attrition, because it's like that old Greek mythology, right, where you cut off the head of the dragon and then two more heads grow. It seems like the the backup plan, when you're talking about toppling the Iranian regime, you take out Khamenei. But then how deep does this go? It seems like Iran was ready for this. They have a very deep roster of people that are going to come in and have the same regime as Khamenei, even worse and more oppressive and more of a threat to our allies in the Middle East. So, yeah, that's always been my biggest concern, and I've said it since day one. Operation Midnight Hammer last year, when Trump sent those bombers actually from the state of Missouri, took out some of the nuclear facilities. It was clean. It was swift. Same thing like we saw in Venezuela earlier this year with Maduro, clean and swift. And I have no problem with that. That's great to flex your military might, to show the world that the United States is still in charge here. And if you cross us, if you threaten us, we will neutralize you. Nobody has a problem with that. It's the forever wars that seem to drag on and on and on. And I worry about this for multiple reasons. Obviously, you could be seeing boots on the ground and American casualties. That's my number one concern. But also, the longer this draws out, Tony, the closer we get to midterms. And you're seeing polls right now, especially with younger voters in the Republican Party, that this is just not a popular thing. The longer we're involved in the Middle East, the less support this is getting from a lot of people, again, younger people especially, in the Republican camp.
You know, you mentioned that there are some mixed messages or different goals being stated by whoever you're hearing from, whether it be Pete Hegseth or the president or Caroline Leavitt. There was a small moment when you said that, it reminded me of this, that I don't want to blow up into a big thing, but I think it's important because I think it does validate, and it does speak to exactly what you were just explaining there. When the president was he was speaking from the White House yesterday, and he was talking about, it's when he made the announcement that that the war is essentially over, that the Iranian regime had been completely eradicated, and that he thought that there was only about 5 days left. I remember, we reported that earlier this week on Monday, that he thought that there was, this week, the next 5 days would probably wrap up Operation Epic Fury. And when he said it, he said, "Oh, look at Pete," because Pete Hegseth was, Pete doesn't want that. Pete wants to keep going. He wants to keep the war, he wants to keep the war going. And I don't know if that's true. And I know that the president was trying to be like complimenting, he was complimenting Pete, saying, like he wants to finish the job and see it all the way through. But kind of the way he said it, and the way it could definitely be interpreted by people in the room or people trying to spin a message, is that like, oh, well, I guess Pete Hegseth is a warmonger that just wants to be, always wants the United States to be at war, so he has a job and is safe. And, this idea of moving on to the next level is bad for the Secretary of War and something that he's against. And I don't know, just in that moment, kind of exactly what you just spoke to is like, well, which is it? Like, do we want to wrap it up, or do we want to stay, with the war as it is? And I know what he was saying. He was saying that Pete wants it to be, Pete wants to finish the job and make sure that we get it all the way done. But it could have been interpreted, very differently and spun a very different way. And right now, that's not what the White House doesn't need to be putting out anything that could be spun in a different direction. They need to be very clear about what the next steps are, in my opinion. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I agree. It's very confusing because, you're seeing tweets from Trump saying, the war in Iran is coming to a close, and then you're seeing conflicting messages that this is going to continue to go on. And another reason, Tony, why this is not great, getting dragged into a war of attrition, Iran has capabilities to fire very cheap drones and missiles all day long. Now, they're not effective now because the U.S. has defense capabilities over there with these very expensive interceptors that actually are able to block these missiles from hitting sites there in the Middle East. But when you scan that out, or when you scale that out, I should say, over weeks, months, years, who knows how long this could go for, Iran is actually, not that these missiles are landing now, because, again, the U.S. has defense mechanisms over there and things that can intercept these missiles, but Iran can crank up these very cheap drones, missiles, and keep firing them, wear out the U.S. defense systems, and then once those are worn out, then those missiles actually do start landing. So this is something that I think it's a slow play for Iran here, and I don't think they're ever going to be able to claim they can win this war, but they could grind the United States and our allies pretty much down to a halt in a very vulnerable position over there. And then what do you do from there? Do you pull out and kind of go with your tail between your legs and say, we claim the United States won this war? I don't think I could look at this right now and say the United States has won this war. If anything, it seems more of like a stalemate. Yes, they took out Khamenei very quickly, but it just doesn't seem like an overwhelming win. It actually seems like more of a moral win for Iran and their people over there, saying, we were able to fend these guys off, the United States and their allies. And I feel like the longer this continues, you start building that morale up with the state of Iran, and it could really just turn into a disaster. And I don't like the way this is heading. And again, I look at the midterms coming up, and you already see a massive shift from young men under 45, where Trump was in November of 2024, versus where he is now. It's actually his net approval rating has dropped significantly with young men under 45, and I think this is a big reason for it. So it's
because those are the ones serving, and those are the ones that have friends that are serving, and don't want their friends to be on the hook for their entire life.
The headline that came out the other day, where the military is increasing the enlistment age. I believe it was 32 was the cap. Now it's up to 42. That's the optics there are a little concerning. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I think I think you're right, and I think you bring up a really important concern that is being expressed by a large number of conservatives. Let's keep in mind that these are conservatives, young conservatives. I think that what the United States military has done from a military standpoint has been incredible. What we have done to just flex our strength, show what we're capable of. In Iran, before that with the, extraction of Maduro, I think that the United States military and our competence and our strength being projected around the world is back in a big, big way. But to your concern, the one thing that the bad actors, the terrorists in parts of the Middle East, specifically Iran, but in other places like Afghanistan and Iraq and others, is their patience. They don't have a 4-year presidential term that they want to try to get everything done in. They don't mind waiting a generation. They don't mind waiting 10 years to duck their heads back down, rebuild everything, stay in control of their, they're still running their own, they're running the show in their own area, and then bringing back all of these same problems and presenting all these same problems down the road. I mean, it's happened over and over again. Iran has been, weeks away from a nuclear weapon. I put weeks away in quotes from a nuclear weapon basically my entire life. For years and years, they've been weeks away. And I don't think that that's a lie. I think that they have been weeks away, but we keep knocking them back, but we don't finish the job. We knock them back, and then we allow them to rebuild. Now, it is on the Iranian people to install the best leader, new leadership that goes in a new direction. And that responsibility lies on the people of Iran and the people in that part of the world. It's not it's not for the United States to run their next election. But to your point, the frustration is that we invest all of this time and effort. We expend all of these resources. And if we don't have a different outcome this time, and if we're on the hook over there for years to come, then what was it all for? And that's a bad message to be sending to people right before the midterm election.
Exactly. And it also, the longer this drags out, the more time, energy, resources that we're distributing there to the Middle East, less time to focus on players like China or domestic policy here at home. And that's something that I've always harped on your show, Tony, is just our domestic issues here and how there is so much work that needs to be done within our own borders. So I feel like, yes, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, but when one of those two are not working, and in this regard, domestic policy here, there's so many issues here at home, then this just puts a giant negative spotlight the longer this goes on in the Middle East. If we were completely cleansed of our problems here, and this place was buttoned up, and we were just a fine-tuned machine, and America was just thriving right now, then you could justify a longer, drawn-out war in the Middle East. But there's so many things that we have to do and take care of here domestically. And I know we could talk about the partial government shutdown. This all ties into that. We only have a few minutes left. But
we only have a few seconds left.
only have a few seconds left. That's why I need like a 3 or 4 hour segment.
I know. We need to do.
We haven't even
exactly
gotten into the United States domestic issues. But it just, I think here, if we're not taking care of our own country within our own borders, the longer this war goes on, the more negative light and the more negative opinions are going to be formed around that.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you back on really soon because I do want to dig into the SAVE Act and the DHS funding, but it just goes to show you how much there is to talk about and unpack with every one of these issues, especially what's happening in Iran. And I really appreciate the thoughts and the insight as always. News Talk STL contributor Danny Define. We'll get you back on real soon, and we'll talk again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, you bet. Great stuff there. All right, we are going to talk to a new friend from Dex Fingerlight in the 3 o'clock hour and open Klose's cabinet next.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson. Mario's Donut Restaurant, that's your place to go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. From mouth-watering sandwiches, omelets, delicious gyros, and Mexican dishes, to their revamped menu with cannolis, tiramisu, baklava, and danishes. And don't forget those famous donuts. Dine in or carry out, Mario's friendly staff is ready to serve you with love and care. Mention News Talk STL when you visit, or just visit mariosdonutrestaurant.com.
Producer Joey V from the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here, reminding you, don't waste a buck on movies that suck. Tune in to Joey V's Movies Fridays at 5:45 for reviews you can trust. Brought to you by Harry J's Steakhouse in Moscow Mills.
This is Tony Colombo, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the cheesesteak made with American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms, and you have to include a side of their amazing fries. I love Capriati's, and you will too.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Bob Agnew in Washington. Most Americans do not support the ongoing war against Iran. Here's White House correspondent Greg Clugston.
A new AP NORC poll shows that a majority of Americans surveyed believe the military action against Iran has gone too far. 90% of Democrats feel that way, as do about 60% of independents. Republicans are more divided. The polling data show that many Americans are worried about affording gasoline. Keeping the price at the pump down is the rare goal that unites both major political parties. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Pakistan, volunteering to broker an end to the war in Iran, has sent Tehran a 15-point ceasefire proposal, but John Gamble reports so far it seems to be bearing little fruit.
So it remains unclear whether this 15-point plan is going to be enough to try to get to the negotiating table, but these new troop movements, as well as the soon-to-be arrival of more U.S. Marines to the region, again puts up the pressure on Iran as its attacks show no signs of stopping.
That is John Gambrell reporting from Dubai. There's a verdict in New Mexico's landmark social media trial.
A New Mexico jury has found social media conglomerate Meta harmful to children's mental health in violation of the state's consumer protection law. Prosecutors say Meta, which owns Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, prioritize profits over safety. Attorneys for Meta say the company discloses risks and makes efforts to weed out harmful content and experiences. Jurors found there were thousands of violations, each counting separately towards a penalty of $375 million. New Mexico's case was among the first to reach trial. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Lower oil prices led to higher stock prices on Wall Street. At the closing bell, the Dow was up by 304 points. The S&P 500 up 35 today, and the Nasdaq gained 167. More from townhall.com.
If your investments are in a 401k or an IRA, then listen carefully. You spent 30, maybe 40 years building your retirement. The question is, are you about to watch it take a hit you can't recover from? Military escalation in Iran, tariffs and legal chaos, the U.S. dollar under pressure it hasn't seen in years. History is clear. When this much uncertainty hits at once, the investors who moved into gold and silver first came out ahead. Right now, Advantage Gold is offering a free gold investment kit and a free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's powerful new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Thousands of Americans have already rolled over a portion of their 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver, completely tax and penalty free through Advantage Gold. Don't wait for the next surge to wish you had moved sooner. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Personal book
from the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
A breezy, warm Wednesday under partly cloudy skies, dry day as well. We're looking at a high temperature of about 81 degrees today, well above the normal high of 60. But if you think that's something, wait till tomorrow's heat. For opening day, we're going to set a record high. The old record is 87. Forecast high is 91. It is going to be a blustery day, and it stays dry. But thunderstorms are likely, rain and storms, overnight Thursday night into very early on Friday. A couple of those storms could be severe. In the First Alert Weather Center, I'm KMOV meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Business owners, download your free playbook for financial clarity at SerenityWealthBiz.com. That's SerenityWealthBiz.com.
Fox News commentary with Craig Gutfeld. Next.
Why does Progressive love protecting truckers? Because truckers unite the world. Truckers unite candles and yoga instructors. Truckers unite fake plants with people who shouldn't own living plants. Truckers unite French press coffee makers with the most pretentious person you know. But truckers can't do any of this if they're not on the road. That's why Progressive now offers truckers even more protection on cargo with its enhanced Cargo Plus coverage. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage subject to policy terms, limits, and conditions. Not available in California.
Here's Greg Gutfeld.
What Trump is doing now, and you have to admit this, is downstream from your own dereliction of your party. What brought us here? The Democrats embraced the luxury beliefs that selfishly elevated their own virtue. Identity politics primarily. Did nothing for the real problems of the world. Did nothing about our foreign policy issues. Did nothing about getting food on the table. Did nothing about education. Americans figured that out, but so did the world. They were watching. I think the shock over Trump is his return to reality. We're back making moves in the practical world, and it has nothing to do with a singular person type identity. This is disorienting to people whose careers were based on the split world of identity politics, who have no idea what a national identity is, who have no idea what the melting pot is. That's all he is doing, and it drives them crazy because they forgot that language.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
News, analysis, opinion.
We've got to get an FBI that is back focused on protecting the homeland.
Every single Democrat has always said that we must never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Well, Molly Crew there. Welcome to Klose's Cabinet on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL here on Colombo and Company. Playing Motley Crue because they're one of the bands that are coming to town this summer to the amphitheater, and I don't know. I don't know, maybe there was once a day where I would be really excited about Motley Crue. I don't know if that day ever really existed. But that day is definitely not today. But it's one of the things that I want to talk about, on top of many other things. With our guests, it is Klose's Cabinet, which means we're talking to Mark Klose from KC95. Marker, hello.
Hello, young man. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for being here. And we also have the sponsor of Klose's Cabinet, Weber Chevrolet, and Skip Weber. Skip, are you there?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon to you as well. Yeah, Motley Crue. Where do they stand on your mountain of rock artists, Skip? Are they near the top? Are they in the middle? Are they not even have they not even made it on the mountain yet? Where do you put these guys?
They're pretty close to the bottom.
Yeah. But yet they've been around for
they've been
decades.
around and they were fun. They've had fun. It's not. I mean, their songs aren't horrible, but I mean, not one of their members would ever be listed on the top of their craft. Okay, and their songwriting is not that great. I mean, there's people that love them, but it's the start of the hair bands. And I actually, there were hair bands that I liked a lot better than Motley Crue.
Yeah.
I'd rather have seen Cinderella or Rat or
I like Poison
White
and Def
Snake.
Leppard.
Def Leppard's way different than them.
Yeah, you're right, but I think they're
Way
when you say that they are by and large classes, they're looked at as a hair band from the 80s. I mean, I think that they would be in that. I agree that the music is totally different, but I think that they would be by and large lumped in that same category.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would not have lumped them together back in the day when they were playing. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe looking back, you might, because you'd have to have a wider net. But they're okay. But like I said, they've had a lot of success and they made a lot of money and had a lot of fun doing it, I assume, and
Margaret,
I don't know, a lot of people like them.
Yeah, exactly. When you go to the, I think their show is August 19th at the amphitheater, and if you go to the ticket websites or whatever, it's one of those that gives you the warning tickets are in high demand, tickets are going fast, make sure you get them now. So yeah, I kind of agree, Mark, with everything that Skip just said. But I don't know if I'm missing something because they've been around for so long. So they're obviously doing something right. Not even, and that's before we even get to what they sound like now, or at least what their reputation is for how they sound now.
Yep.
Where do you put a band like Motley, or specifically Motley Crue? Where do you put them on the list when it comes to great rock bands?
Well, like Skip said, they had a lot of success. I've never been a really big fan. I don't really hair bands per se one way or the other. I mean, those early photos of those guys look better than any girl I ever took out except for my wife. Oh my God, were those things made up crazy. And then now, like you said, what they sound like now, they've had, Mars in the band. They're suing each other.
Yeah, that's
they've
ugly.
had a lot of videos around where they say they're basically kind of playing the tracks. And there's a couple of them, where the bass player's yelling at everybody and clapping his hands. And you can hear the bass.
Yeah, you can hear the play.
It's like, how's that happening?
You can see Nikki Sixx. Yeah, Nikki Sixx isn't even touching his bass,
Right.
and the music's playing. Yeah.
And Vince's voice.
Oh,
but then again,
boy.
You got to look at it and realize that how long these guys have been doing it, and you're not seeing it at their prime. But then again, you look at most bands, any band that's been around in any period of time, and when you're watching them play, they're not what they were 30, 40 years ago. And who is? I mean, you look at it.
But it's usual. But that doesn't usually go for the the guitar players and the musicians in the band. It's usually because there's no doubt about it that Father Time gets the voice, gets the lead singer, I think, way before it gets the others. But you're right. It seems like, except for maybe Tommy Lee on drums, Which still he still I think has a pretty good reputation in the industry as far as being a good drummer. I'm not saying for anything else, but I'm saying for his musicianship. But yeah, you're right. It's like there's been it's like the whole band has atrophied, which you don't usually see that at that level with outside the singer.
Right, and
well,
you know,
I think part of that. I think part of that goes to the talent that was there to begin with. I mean, I know they had some talent, but I mean, you look at somebody like, let's not go to even to the Beatles. Look at somebody like Journey.
Let's not go
those
to the
guys
Beatles.
Those guys had a lot of talent, and they played. They would have played for free.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing in garage bands. They were good enough to take the next level, and they didn't. But they would have. They were doing it to create music. I think that a lot of the hair bands and a lot of people like Motley Crue, they kind of liked being famous more than they liked creating music.
Yeah. They like being rock stars more than they did musicians.
Like that is, when they're not making music, they're not keeping themselves sharp. They're not, tinkering with new songs to write. They're not making themselves better. I mean, you look at, most of these guys, someone like George Harrison, he was a better guitar player the day before he died than the day before he started the Beatles.
Yeah.
He got better all the way through. He was always experimenting, always learning new instruments, always getting together with Clapton or Tom Petty or whoever and making themselves better because he loved the music first. And I never got that feel from people like Motley Crue.
I agree. And yet, as we said, they still have a big following. And I'll tell you what, you want to have some fun one day, go to YouTube and type in like either Motley Crue or Vince Neil and like Vince Neil now or Vince Neil voice.
Oh yeah.
And there's these videos that have like, like the closed they put like the closed captioning on the bottom, but it's not, it's just what it kind of sounds like.
Yes.
It's really
harsh.
funny. But but they're still selling tickets, which is pretty freaking amazing. This is Close's Cabinet on Colombo Company. Got Mark Close and KC95, Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet on the line. I thought this was cool, Skip. This there's a list that's going viral right now on the internet about real world places that have been made famous by TV shows and that people want to travel and go see. So, for example, the number one is Old Town and Dravognik of No, Yellowstone's on there, though. Yellowstone's number 5. Chief Joseph Ranch in Darby, Montana from Yellowstone. Game of Thrones, this town in Croatia is number 1. Twister's Burgers and Burritos in Albuquerque, New Mexico, thanks to Breaking Bad. King's Cross Station in London, thanks to Harry Potter. And Kualoa Ranch in Oahu, Hawaii, I guess because that's where they filmed parts of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World.
Yeah.
So that made me think, Skip, is there any place that is famous from television or movies that you would want to, or maybe you've even done it, that you would want to see in person because of the fame that was given to it by television or movies? Or even take it one step further, as Mark likes to do, and if there's not a real world place, is there another thing that comes to mind that would be from TV or movies that you would love to go visit, even if it's not an actual real world place?
So I've got a couple of them.
Yeah.
When my wife and I traveled to Ireland, the day before we left to come home, we learned about a tour in Northern Ireland that you could go to that was another Game of Thrones place. In other words, they did the Croatia.
Yeah.
They did a lot of stuff in Northern Ireland, and we would have loved to have seen that, but we didn't. But when we sail in the Caribbean, there's 3 different locations that were extensively used in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And those were not my favorite movies. I liked them okay, but you can tell you can recognize some of the scenes from there, and the locals will tell you, well, in this movie they use it for this, and in that movie they use it for that, and in the movies they weren't the same scene, but you can see it's the same place. And they just kind of doctored it up and used different angles, and it's kind of cool. And one of them is a place we often will spend the night. because they've got it's a secluded harbor, and they've got moorings there, and it's a nice place to spend the night before you go to the next step or whatever, and that's pretty cool. And then the other thing was, this is really obscure, and I tell this to people all the time. I've been to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, exactly once. Okay, it was cool. We enjoyed it. We'd like to go to different places a lot, and they have a place just a little bit south of Puerto Vallarta where they filmed The Predator. And they built a restaurant, and if you remember, if you like the movie, toward the end, they had the scene where Arnold's in the water, and then he has the mud, and there's the big battle, climactic battle between him and the Predator is in this lagoon-type area.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a restaurant there, and it's really pretty, and it was a cool restaurant, and you gotta kind of go off the beaten path to get to it. Very, very rough road to get up to it, but like I said, a good restaurant at the top, and that was really neat. We got T-shirts that said Predator filming and all this, and I tell people about it. Anybody that said they're going to Puerto Vallarta, I tell people about it, and nobody goes. I don't know why. It's
I would love to. Yeah,
I know. Don't you think?
That'd be one of the that'd be one of the first things I'd put on my list.
Day.
Yeah,
you go a little bit south of the city to go to lunch and whatever, but nobody ever goes.
Well, like you said with the Pirates of the Caribbean, even if you don't love that movie, it's still a historically, it's still a well-known movie. It's a scene that everybody's familiar with. So to be able to say you were there, I think it's super cool.
My other point is, it's a good restaurant.
Yeah, and there you
go. Good place.
That too.
It's a good place to eat. It's cool. I mean, here a lot of the local kids use it as a swimming hole, and they're jumping off the trees and stuff, and everybody, that's entertaining watching these kids do flips on all this big. I mean, it was a neat place. Kids couldn't get it. I've never been able to get anybody to go to this place.
Huh. Well, if I ever go to Puerto Vallarta, I will be. I 100% will be on that. I'll send you a picture while I'm there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Margaret, you got anything like that? You got any places from TVs or movies that you would like to see in person?
I'm trying to think, and nothing really. I remember, from TV, the old Magnum PI, whenever they would show Hawaii.
Yeah,
that was pretty nice. And I've been to Hawaii 4 or 5 times, and if it ain't paradise, it's damn close to it.
I know.
They're having a rough time now. Last year, Lahaina with the fire, or whatever, 2 years ago, and this year with the flooding and everything. It's just such a beautiful. So anytime, they're showing a movie or a television show that goes to it, kind of brings us back. Like I said, we haven't been there in a while, but it's pretty nice. Hopefully they get everything. I feel so bad for them because tourism is such a big part of the income over there, and they last couple of years, man, they've been getting wrecked pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We have one in St. Louis, the White Knight. The White Knight.
Oh, absolutely.
The restaurant, which is an awesome little diner in downtown St. Louis. I mean, at least as far as the food is concerned, it's tiny. It's a tiny little place, maybe like 6 or 7 tables in the whole place, but the White Palace movie with Susan Sarandon and James Spader was filmed there. So we have one of those, not nearly as famous as The Predator or King's Cross Station in London or the stuff from Game of Thrones, but we do have our own little piece of that history right here in the St. Louis area, which is kind of cool and a great place. Go ahead.
Yeah, a buddy of mine wrote that book, Glenn Saban, a guy that I knew. Saban Advertising, Glenn Saban, he has since passed away, and he wrote that book, and it got optioned out for a movie. And there's another scene where they show a big, party indoors in a beautiful house, and that's a house that's right over off of Clayton and Mason Road, kind of over in the Town and Country area. And they used that house for the one of the interior shots, and they did some other shots down in the central West End, where he's hanging out in the bar. In fact, a friend of mine went down. It was going to be an extra, and he had to walk in and take off his coat, and he did it had to do it 9 or 10 times for the movie, and then they cut him out of the movie.
Oh no! So, after all that work of taking off his coat.
Yeah, taking his coat off. But there's a couple places like that.
That's funny.
I was going to laugh. The TV show Ozark.
Well, and in Union Station too, from Escape from L.A., right? Or what was it?
Oh yeah, Union Station.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we were down there for that. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
and there's a bridge that goes across the Mississippi. They use an old bridge out there too and stuff. So yeah, we got a couple claims to fame in there, I think. So yeah.
Absolutely. Skip, not as cool as Predator, but we got a couple here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the little diner across the street, across the river in Sauget that services the Zero Copper and the refineries and stuff for the shift work, and they made a movie there too.
Yeah.
Eric Roberts, I think, is in it, and something like that.
Oh yeah.
You know what else I love? And I pointed this out to my new son-in-law, or my soon-to-be son-in-law, when we went downtown a few weeks ago for something. Also, the shot from National Lampoon's Vacation, which at the time would have been a helicopter shot. Now it would be a drone shot of Highway 70 when he accidentally goes into East St. Louis. I'm like, look, we're right here. We're right here on that part of the highway. There's the exit. And there's another moment in St. Louis movie history. Mark, we only got a couple minutes left here. It's getting nice and warm outside, and the time that people start getting back outside to enjoy live music, to enjoy just being outside, live entertainment and things like that. What is the latest with the band and with KC95? What do we need to let folks know about?
I guess, the show's coming up a week from this Saturday. The show the Close Quarters is doing with Learn's band, Lane Narrows, and that's at the Miners Theater over there in Collinsville. And the last time he checked, we're at about 35, maybe 38 tickets left on that.
Ooh.
So that should be close. That'll be fun. But you're right. I'm looking forward to, after that, then we've got a ton of stuff on the books. Many of those, weather permitting, and it's always weather permitting. Our next one up would be like Saturday, April 11th. Hopefully we'll be outdoors at the Dog Prairie out in St. Paul, weather permitting. I love being out. I love playing outside. I love being outside. People seem to have just a great time doing it. And again, whether it's my band or your band or anybody's, Chesterfield Amphitheater, Hollywood, whether it's a local band or a national band, if you get a chance to see them outdoors, it just makes it that much better for me.
Yep, and we had our show this past Friday out at the Mill in Granite City. It was a great time. Thank you, Skip Weber, once again for sponsoring that. I'll tell you what, Queen and Jason Nelson and Somebody Love, they are just the best every single time, and they delivered again. Hopefully we'll have another show for you coming up that we can talk about our band playing, and Jason's always got something going on, so we'll keep up with him as well. But also, Skip, when we look at what's happening at the Weber Automotive Group, unbelievably, we're at almost the end of another month. We're almost at the end of March. I mean, and it is beautiful outside, so that's great too.
Coming up to the end, yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the latest at Weber?
Well, we've had truck month all month long, and Chevrolet put a little bit of extra cash on the incentive, so that got a little bit better. It's even a little bit bigger discount, so that's been going super great. We're enjoying that. But yeah, I think April's going to be even bigger. COVID took away all of our inventory, as we all know, and it took a while to get ramped back up, and supply chains have been problems. I mean, we've talked about that for 3 years now, and things have gotten so much better. But something kind of weird happened this time when they shut the plants down in December, like they always do. Just took a little bit longer to get everything, back to more normal again. I think it might be that we sold a few more vehicles this December and this January than we did last year, but we were getting a little bit light on our vehicles by the end of February, and it is absolutely reversed. All of a sudden, we started getting all the stuff that was kind of backing up, and we've been waiting for. So we got a lot of vehicles on the lot, even though we've sold a lot. So that's good. That's a great combination. Everybody talks about supply and demand these days because they're all talking about oil. The supply is choked because the Gulf is all messed up. So there's less oil, so the price is going up. Well, there's more cars, so the prices are going down. We love that to use that. And when you have more sales, that means more trade-ins, so more pre-owned vehicles. So there's more of those too. So it's really a pretty good sweet spot right now for our pricing, for our volume, for our selection, for all of that.
Well, I love it.
I don't think it'll stay that way to the spring.
That's fantastic. And yeah, there's just something about the weather turning that, like, maybe you've been wanting to get a new car, or you've been wanting to go car shopping for the last couple of months, but you just haven't gotten around to it yet. There's something about the weather turning around and getting back outside that makes people, like, even though you could need a car in the dead of winter, sure, and you're going to have to go get it, but there's something about, like, this time of year, getting back outside, moving around more and things like that just seem like it's like the time to do it if you're going to be looking for a new vehicle. And can't, of course.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. I mean, we sell cars all year round, and, it doesn't matter what the weather is. We'll take care of you. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot to be said when it's really cold out or when the weather's somewhat nasty. There's people that come out and people that need it. But if you're kind of, we need it, but we don't need it today, people just want to go home when it's cold.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And they don't want to add anything else to their to-do list. It's just nasty.
Yep.
And this is the time when you go, hey, let's go do something, whatever it might be. And so it always is. Spring's always huge for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. Check out all 3 Weber Chevrolet dealerships and also Weber Ford out in Granite City, the entire Weber Automotive Group. Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet. Mark Klose from KC95. Boys, great stuff as always. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great rest of your day.
See you, boys.
Yeah. All right. And before we get out of here, we are going to, in just a moment, talk to Tom Mitchell, somebody that we met on the Bluff City Outdoors show from the Wildwood Conservation Alliance, talking about some outdoor issues in the area. But in those conversations, got to learn about Tom and his family and his great business and products, local family-owned business, a great story about a great product called the Dex Finger Light. Just an awesome story, an awesome new friend for all kinds of reasons, and wanted to get Tom on the air and get a chance to talk to him about, some of the things that he's interested in, learn about his story and his company and all of those things. And Tom Mitchell from Dex Finger Light is going to join us next on Colombo and Company.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk.
The Democrat Party is going to have to go back toward the center.
News, analysis, and opinion.
I've never called a talk show before, but this just irked me.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Remember in early high school, maybe even grade school, when you had a special health class? All the boys went to one class, all the girls went to another. Yes, we were learning about the birds and the bees, and that storks did not deliver babies. Well, nowadays, what are we teaching our children? What age is too soon, too late? South Dakota just became the 7th state requiring prenatal education in public school health classes. Students will be taught how a baby is created and born. Nowadays, with internet searches, kids could get this online, but they might also be pulled into something more sinister than the beauty of life. They might be pulled into child pornography. Live Action is a national pro-life group which lobbied for that law in South Dakota and for other states. And they're getting a lot of support, they say, from parents and physicians. These are animated videos, and you can watch the videos at liveaction.org. Liveaction.org from liveaction.org.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STL Windows and Doors. Their Provia windows combine old world craftsmanship the professional way, the Provia way, with over 65 years of combined experience, locally owned, offering competitive pricing and personalized service that the big box companies can't match. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
The story behind the story, The Twilight Zone, and the episode that got banned for decades.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 119.94.1 News Talk STL. Jam-packed show today with our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd, and News Talk STL contributor, Danny Define, in the 2 o'clock hour. Just wrapped up Klose's Cabinet there. Remember, if you miss anything on the show, just be subscribed to our podcast. Best way to make sure you never miss any of the great conversations that we have every day here on Colombo and Company, including with our next guest, Tom Mitchell, who we met over on the Bluff City Outdoors show several weeks ago with the Wildwood Conservation Alliance, talking about some local, wildlife issues in the area. But in those conversations, also got to know Tom and his story a little bit, and he's also got a great product, local family-owned business that he started with his son, and just an awesome product called the Dex Finger Light. So I wanted to get Tom on the line with us and share that conversation and story with everyone for a few minutes this afternoon. So Tom Mitchell, great to talk with you, buddy. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mr. Colombo, and I've got to say a big hello to my hometown St. Louis family. Hello, St. Louis.
yeah, absolutely. And so, like I mentioned, we were hooked up through mutual friends in the outdoor community in St. Louis, and had you on to talk about some wildlife issues on the Bluff City Outdoor Show multiple times here over the last few weeks. But in those discussions, kind of got to know more about you and your story and this awesome product called the Dex Finger Light, which people may have heard. We've started just talking about this product a little bit here recently. I have one at home. It solves so many problems that I didn't know that I had before. Like, it comes in handy. Dude, it comes in handy for so many different things, and I love the story behind it and the family, connection and recognizing this issue and coming up with this product. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you a chance to kind of share that story because it's a good one, and it's a product that I think people, once they realize it's out there, will say, man, how did I live without one of these for so long? So yeah, tell us about the Dex Finger Light and how you, the experiences that you had that led you to, recognizing this issue and then creating this awesome product.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really been a blessing and a joy to get to know you on the radio. We've not met face to face yet, but I want to make sure I thank you for this opportunity. It's very gracious. Number one. Number two.
Your time. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I'm 61 years old. I grew up in the St. Louis area. I've lived in different parts of the Midwest and California. Well, this is a conservative radio station, so I can say the People's Republic of California, probably, right?
Yes,
but
you can.
it wasn't so bad back in the 90s, but my wife and I moved back here. We raised our family. Our 3 sons all went to Westminster Christian Academy. They played baseball. They won state titles. I coached baseball, but I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've been in the medical device industry for 30 years, launching different types of spinal fusion implants throughout the United States, game-changing technologies that change the way surgeons do surgery. But I've also been a bow hunter my whole life since I was 12. I started bow hunting with my dad and Burl Pemberton, and they even shot with Earl Hoyt Jr. and some real legends in the archery world. And as a bow hunter, though, I don't like using a headlamp. And so I just quit using a light when I was going to my tree stand or messing with a blind. I ended up with a small light I had to carry, and it ended up, guess where? In my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this product online on LinkedIn invented by a surgeon. And he invented it for surgery. And we'll probably make a sterile version at some point. But I'm like, this light that attaches to my finger really solves my problem. It's hands-free. It's really small, compact. And we licensed his patent, and we own the patent now worldwide in perpetuity exclusively. And my son, I have 3 sons. Alec is the oldest one. He's still in the medical device industry. But then Ben and Jake, my middle and youngest son, started this company to develop this product called Dex Fingerlight. And it was a grind developing it. This is not a gimmick. This is a tool. This is a new category device. The ring is bendable. It's highly durable. You bend it to fit any finger, any thumb, any position, and it points light exactly where you need it without wearing a headlamp. So no more bugs around the face, no more craning your neck, no more uncomfortable straps. And to your point, we have to convince people like you and others that they have a problem. Most people don't know they have a problem. They say, well, I just wear a headlamp, or, I use my cell phone, or I carry a flashlight. And then they get this, and the customer responses have been outstanding. I wasn't surprised that people would be interested in it. It's a unique product. But I am surprised by how well they love it. I mean, they love it. They like the durability of it. Almost everybody who gets it, they say, I had no idea it would be this durable and this high quality. And I'm not saying that to sell it to anyone. I'm saying I'm very proud of that. We worked really hard, Ben, Jake, and I, and our design team, to develop a product that was something that we'd want to buy, that we would be proud to own. And, of course, we want to stand by the integrity of what we sell. So really, starting this project with 2 of my sons was really a lesson in entrepreneurism for them. It was a lesson on how to apply faith and to understand that you're going to suffer in a startup. It's, quite frankly, it's hell. Startup companies are hell. Most people don't understand that. It's extremely challenging mentally, financially, uncertainty, and you've got to really have courage and fortitude to keep pressing on, and that's what you do as an entrepreneur. You take it one day at a time, but I like doing things that are hard.
Yeah, and can I say also,
This is
Tom,
really
that you
hard. Yeah.
can I also say that on top of that, people will try to take shortcuts in that process, and because of all of the sacrifice and how hard of work it is, and all of the the risks that you have to take. And a lot of times that will, taking those shortcuts will be what ultimately dooms them in the end. What I love about the Fingerlight is that you can tell that there is that quality and, durability, and having a real product, not a gimmick or a novelty, something that feels like a tool that can be with you for when you need that tool for years. That's what you have when you have the Fingerlight. And I can't tell you, look, a good headlamp, they come in handy for certain things. But I was recently, one of my kids kicked their small toy underneath the dresser. When you're down on your belly looking for something under the dresser, a headlamp's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to shine right on the drawer, But you stick it, you have your light right on your hands, and you can find that. I was building a small. My son got this crazy glove thing that was like a hand that had to be built with all these little parts for Christmas this past year, and I literally put off making it for months. And I can't tell you how many times I used the Fingerlight to find these little pieces that would fall on the ground, or I was sitting in my bed working on it, it'd fall on the sheets, and there's just all of these different times where the finger light comes in so handy, and it's so much better than a headlamp or a flashlight in these instances. And like you said, for outdoorsmen in the woods, like how much better that is than having a light on your head that's flashing all around the woods as you're looking around. And you don't want that. You want it to be isolated exactly where you need it. And it's very bright also with the multiple settings. It's also, if you need it to be very bright, it can be. I just wanted to stop there and just say, that the quality of this product is something to me that really sets it apart too. You can see the effort that you guys put into it when you get one of your hands on one of these.
And we did not take shortcuts.
No,
we took long cuts. We took long cuts, and this might be a good place. Of course, we love selling finger light, but people can buy it. I have a special flash, if you want to call it a flash sale, just for our local homies.
Yeah.
At fingerlight.com. I've never done this. Are you sitting down?
I'm ready.
It's the biggest discount we've ever given, bigger than any Amazon Prime or Black Friday discount. Use the code SAVE40, 40% off, and that will expire tonight.
Oh.
Now, I know they have your normal code, but they can take advantage of that right now. So let me just add, so it's fingerlight.com, SAVE40 at checkout. I'm a little scared. Hopefully we'll sell some in a couple, but in any case, I wanted to plug that. I appreciate you bringing up the shortcuts, and, life is like that. Sometimes people want to take the easy road. I personally never do that, and my sons don't do it. I mean, heck, Ben, the middle son, he's a Marine Corps officer. I mean, this kid could have gone out and done any career after graduating from Mizzou. He chose to become a Marine, U.S. Marine Corps officer.
Wow, that's amazing.
Selfishly, I wanted him home, and that's one reason why I started this company. I said, "Hey, why don't you come home instead of being a captain in the Marine Corps? Why don't you come home? Let's go sell finger lights."
Yeah.
So that's what we did. That's what he did. But yeah, I mean, look, the thing is that you can have the perfect plan in business or life. It really isn't about the plan. It's important to plan, but you have to massively execute your plan. You have to do things that are seemingly impossible. And when we developed this product, the bendable ring, we call it Kryptonite.
Kryptonite, I love that word. I love that.
Thank you. Well, who came up with that? I got to give him credit. A guy named Walt Larson. I flew up to Minnesota to meet with a guy named Walt Larson. He launched the Yeti brand, and he came up with keeps ice longer, 10 times stronger slogan for Yeti. Yeti struggled at first. Yeti is now maybe a $5 billion valued company on the New York Stock Exchange or the stock market. And, they struggled at first, Yeti did. They were selling a $400 cooler when you could buy a Coleman for $60. But they found a target audience, an overnight fisherman out of Galveston, Texas. So that's what we've done. We found a target audience with U.S. military. We have a lot of Black Hawk helicopter pilots that buy this on their own. We have aviators who buy it. And of course, we have bow hunters and archers and fishermen, campers who are buying it, and they love it. So it's rewarding. And that's why I say you take the hard, long road, and that gives you the reward. Because things that are hard give you the reward.
Amen.
And
as an avid fisherman, I can tell you from those personal experiences, like I said, just around the house and as an avid fisherman, how much that comes in handy and how much of a game changer it makes. And you don't even realize it until you have it, how much life can be made easier in so many situations. Tom, we're up against the dreaded hard break, but I want to remind folks, fingerlight.com for the rest of the night tonight. Fingerlight.com. Use the code SAVE40 for 40% off. Go to fingerlight.com and you'll see videos and learn more about this product. I'm telling you, you're going to fall in love with it. It's incredible. And to take advantage of this deal, SAVE40 as your promo code for 40% off for the rest of the day at fingerlight.com. Go and get yourself one. Tom, we'll talk to you again very soon, my friend. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
God bless you, Tony. Thank you so
back
much,
at you,
sir.
buddy. Thank you.
Have a good-
O'Reilly next, then the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show. Fingerlight.com, save 40. Go.
Chris Arp's here, and after Becky and I leave church on Sunday, we head down the street to Capriotti's to grab a classic meatball sub. And of course, for dessert, I get a giant chocolate chip cookie. I love Capriotti's, and you will too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the-right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Bill O'Reilly here. You are listening to the O'Reilly Update. Coming up next, the news with Mike Slater.
Thank you, Bill. It is Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. Here's what's happening today in America. Details on illegal alien murderer, Iranian mines, American freed, and a quadruple amputee in trouble with the law. That's all coming up, and Bill's going to be here with your message of the day. But first, terrible details in the Sheridan Gorman murder by the illegal alien from Venezuela in Chicago. Gorman, who was 18, was with a group of friends on a pier in Loyola Park, just a couple blocks from Loyola's campus. Gorman alerted her friends that someone was hiding near the pier. The friends were then chased by the illegal alien.